My name is Mike Brampton. Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
And I'm Julian Hode. And tonight we're going to be talking about...
Who?
And babies.
Practice teams.
And working in a no-blame environment.
And we're going to discuss all of this with Lou, the vet nurse. Let's get her in. Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Hode.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings. We interrupt the show for an important announcement.
Hi there, dedicated listeners. We just wanted to take a little time outside of the show as we got something very exciting to share with you.
We have exclusive Veterinary Ramblings merchandise available now, including t-shirts, mugs, posters and prints.
Now, personally, I think my favourite is our t-shirt with a hilarious diagram of cat anatomy, which has been revised to include their sandpaper tongue and treat detecting ears.
And essential for all veterinary students. If you would like to show your support for the show, head over to veterinaryramblings.com and select either the merch button for a one-off purchase through our T-Mill store or select Become a Patron.
I'm sure you'll be absolutely chuffed to know that everything in our T-Mill store is fully sustainable, carbon neutral and shipped in plastic-free packaging. By making a one-off purchase, you will help us to plant more trees, save water and reduce carbon emissions.
If you want to further support us, become a Patreon and receive items you cannot get through one-off purchasing, a shout out on the show, and exclusive Veterinary Ramblings content.
Every single purchase made will really help us keep on interviewing amazing guests. But if nothing else, we do appreciate you tuning in.
Now,
on with the show.
Here she is.
Oh.
Let's get Lou the vet nurse in.
Hi, Lou.
Lou, it's been like forever. Hello.
Hi.
I'm like a kid in a sweet shop now. There's so many things I want to know about your career and what got you started and what your interests are. Tell us everything, A to B. Let's start with, I wanted to be a vet nurse when I was.
Yeah, so basically it actually started from a few bad incidents with pet hamsters. So I had pet hamsters to start with, like most children do. They're not the best pet, to be honest, because they live for 2 years and then they die, and it's really traumatic every time. But then you get another one and then it dies after 2 years and it's really traumatic. But I always used to absolutely adore going to the vets with my mum with the hamsters for them to get their medicine, which was always the same thing. And I'm sure we all know what that is. Hopefully things have changed since then. And every time I used to go into the vets, I used to absolutely adore it. At that point, I didn't actually really know what a veterinary nurse was because you didn't really see them. They were very much out the back, not in the consult room. And that's obviously changed now too, which is great. But I got some work experience when I was 15. And during that placement, I was like, wow, there are veterinary nurses. And I sort of at this point knew what a veterinary nurse was, but not to the extent of how much they were doing in practice. Right. And I thought to myself, actually, I quite like what they're doing. And I think what they're doing appeals to me more. So, you know, we have a very similar role in a lot of ways, but it is very different as well. And for me, I wanted to be really hands-on, you know, in the kennel with the patient all day, every day. I had an interest in anaesthesia at that point already. It fascinated me. And then I got a evening and weekend job at my local practice, literally cleaning. That's all I did for 2 years, cleaning, waiting for a student position to come up. Started full-time and then had to wait another year or two to start training. So I had quite a slow transition into practice, but then I had a long wait to really kick my career off. And then, so from 15 and how old am I now? 33? No, 32. Oh, I don't know. I actually don't know.
You need to know that.
But I've basically been in practice my whole life. That's what it feels like. My whole sort of adult life I've been nursing now.
And it's interesting. Sorry to interrupt you there, but you talk about the similar roles of vets and nurses, and there is a convergence there, isn't there? But there's the expression, isn't there, that we use in veterinary medicine: cats are not small dogs, and it's a very similar sort of expression. Vet nurses are not small vets, or vice versa. The roles complement each other, and they should complement each other perfectly, shouldn't they?
Yes.
And there's no easy way to define it. there is an arrogant way, as a vet would perhaps use it to define it. There is a petulant way that a nurse could use it to define it, but actually none of those are helpful. The two roles could not exist, certainly these days, without the other. Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where I work and other practices I've worked, I've always felt like we're on the same team. And yeah, that's the whole vet led thing again, isn't it? I love it. So
it is. Absolutely. We in my practice, nothing happens without the vet and nurse, or vets and nurses, deciding what order to do things in, what the analgesia protocol is, what we're going to achieve, how we're going to do it, and when everyone's ready and on board with all that, then we can get cracking. But
the reality in Julian's practice is, until the nurses say it's okay, nothing happens.
Absolutely.
And then the nurses tell the vets what they're going to do, and then the vets do it, and then the nurses tell them what they've done right and what they've done wrong. Yeah.
See, as a clinical director, most
we
of my
need
time
to get Marie on the show.
We should get Marie, one of my nurses, my head surgical nurse, who's brilliant. And I'm up in the office pushing paper clips along very precisely until she says, "Right, okay, dog's ready on the table. Come and do it." And then that's it. That's the vet led team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it doesn't have to be so sort of, oh, this is my job, that's your job. It's really. Yeah, it's thinking in the modern mindset, sort of. I know we can be set in our ways, but if we can help each other do our jobs easier and better, then why would you not want to work with each other and delegate more?
It's more cohesive, it's more fun.
Yeah.
And the patient gets the better care as well. If you have 4 members of staff all standing together talking, 2 nurses and 2 vets, everyone has different experiences. Let them talk about it, let them share it. And sometimes you'll find, that's a really good idea. I hadn't even thought of that. That should be encouraged, not, gosh, they're telling me what to do. It's not like that. That's not the approach that I really try and promote. It's sharing experiences. Why do we all do CPD? Because we want to learn more. And if you don't share it, what's the point? It's so much, it just means so much more if you can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we all have different viewpoints. So I really look for my nurses to be able to say to me, I'm the surgeon, I've done a great job, fantastic, it's all well. No, it's in pain. Oh, okay, right. No, it can't be. I've given it methadone, it's fine. It's in pain, it needs something else. Okay, what should we do? How are we going to do it? And I mentioned pain relief before. Pain relief is the uttermost part of responsibility, I think, of that team, isn't it? Making sure our patients are comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, we're the ones watching the patients after the procedure. if we're just following a tick box and doing what the vet said 6 hours before, but actually it's not cutting the mustard, then we should feel that we can say, do you know what, actually, this, like you just said, this patient needs more. And why, as nurses, can we not make suggestions? But, at the end of the day, the vet makes the final decision because they're prescribing, which is the code of conduct. Perfect, great. But if I've been on an analgesia CPD and I've done a webinar the week before and it tells me about something really sexy, I'm going to suggest it, aren't I?
Absolutely. And that's how we all learn, isn't it?
Would you suggest this as a 15-year-old getting into anaesthesia?
I think as I've got older, I would I've got more confident about sharing my knowledge, but I think as a profession we've changed as well, and I think there is a bit of a movement going at the moment in how we act with each other in practice, and I'm really keen to push that as much as I can, because I think it will keep more people in the profession longer. There
is quite a move on that. I mean, you're involved in this movement, aren't you, through the RCVS and other bodies? So what are the key changes that you're seeing then? I mean, you're involved in them, you're seeing them. You've mentioned COVID, and I want to come back on to COVID and what we've all gone through, because that's changed your life quite dramatically, hasn't it?
Oh, yes, it did change. But
we'll come on to that one in a minute.
Yeah, trying to stay on topic. Changes that are coming in. Well, we have the Schedule 3 review at the moment, but that's all about giving nurses more responsibility in practice. So that's being able to happily say to us, do you know what, you can do that, and then they're allowed to delegate it rather than probably maybe being allowed or not being allowed, but really we should be doing it.
So what sort of things are you looking there to be delegated? What sort of things? Because nurses have got a lot of high quality skills.
I think
they're restricted
like,
by Schedule 3 from practicing some of those skills because it has to be done under the direction of a veterinary surgeon who may actually not be in the same room.
Yeah, and like some, I mean, for example, you know, when they first started talking about making changes, the headlines were all about nurses doing cat castrates. And I was like, really? You know, of all the things we're going to get excited about, cat castrates, you know, a stitch-up's more exciting than a cat castrate. We can already do that. Now, I'm not saying don't let us do it, because I do think it is definitely a task nurses should be able to do. But for me as a nurse that loves anaesthesia, you know, with monitoring at the moment, monitoring and maintenance, it's a little bit of a grey area. So as a veterinary nurse, I can monitor under the direction and also maintenance, but any changing of anaesthetic depth, we're supposed to communicate with our veterinary surgeon. So every time I touch that dial, literally every time, we're supposed to communicate it. Now, of course, we all do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can sense a conflict here, because
it's just really difficult.
Yeah, because good anaesthesia practice will tell you that you're going to communicate to the team that you've made a change.
But it's like, you know, if as far as like dealing with complications in the anaesthetic, when, you know, there's a bitch spay bleeding out, for example, if my veterinary surgeon is really happy that, you know, I'm happy to administer a fluid bolus, of course I'm always going to communicate it, but I just feel there should be a little bit more autonomy, and like sometimes they'll be like, do what you think. That's fine, Lou, do what you think. But because my knowledge, because I've done more CPD in that area than they have, is probably actually slightly better, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet. But you know, anaesthesia is a tough subject. Not everyone loves it, and it is a bit like mustard. You either love it or hate it, don't you? And I do find that the majority of vets I've worked with, unless they're anaesthesia keynotes as well, are like, yeah, okay, yep, do that, that's fine, but it wouldn't it be nice for me to be able to do a certificate that allows me to do a bit more without having to sort of interfere their end of the time. It's difficult. It's really difficult.
It is, but I think you're absolutely right. And there's, again, I'm mentioning adages all over the place these days, but the old adage of anaesthesia is 99% tedium, 1% panic, isn't it? Is that 1% where you suddenly need to change something, there should be an autonomy of saying, well, actually, I spend all my time during anaesthetic monitoring. The vet will, unless there is a dedicated veterinary anaesthetist, the vet spends none of his time or her time monitoring the anaesthetic. And therefore, the person who's monitoring should be the one who does the changing, not the, oh, this is happening. I say, hello, oh, it's dead. Sorry, doesn't matter, it's fine. There should be that ability within the early part of the monitoring, when you see a fluctuation, change, there we go. Because half the time, I'll be honest, if I'm operating and the nurse says to me, getting a bit light, do you mind if I just increase the anaesthetic? I'm concentrating on putting a vein back together or something. I'm not going to look up, sorry, yes, what are the readings? What is it? It's just, yeah, that's fine, great. And I'm paying lip service to it. If someone says to me, can you monitor anaesthetic? I'll do it, but I'll panic all the time thinking, I'm not doing as good a job as my nurse is monitoring.
Yeah, it's trust, isn't it? You know, my team, like, I feel I would like to think that if they work with me, they are really happy that if I make a suggestion, like, I think it's a valid one, and often they'll support me in my decision making. But you know, sometimes they will say, actually, Lou, oh no, can we wait a bit, or can we do this instead? And that's fine as well. But it's very frustrating as a nurse, I think, in the current climate as it is at the moment, to do certificates, advanced certificates. Even the BTS nurses that are like hardcore, have studied really hard, done loads of case reports, gone to America to do an exam, they still are on exactly the same sort of rule book as other RVNs. And I do think it is time now for nurses to be able to be recognised for their additional qualifications like the veterinary surgeons are, because at the moment there isn't really that. There is no difference in practice from a nurse that's been qualified for a year versus 15 years, loads of certificates as to what they can actually do or not do. It's exactly the same. And I think now is the time to maybe have a little look at that. Yeah, it's like, make the most of your career, do what you want to do. But I think education and continued learning and development is what keeps you interested and motivated. And that's one of the bits of advice I always give to nurses when they say they feel a bit stagnant. It's like, set a goal. What do you love? Oh, I don't really love anything right now. Well, what gives you a little tingle? That little tingle is what you need to take hold of and, you know, make that your niche. So
absolutely.
So that's anesthesia for you.
Yes.
Yeah, and ECC, anything super sick, really. I know that sounds quite morbid, but I love, because it's like a big jigsaw and there's loads of different things you have to think about: fluid therapy, analgesia, all the monitoring. Oh, I just gets me all excited. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight afterwards.
Isn't there? The pressure to do it.
It's the adrenaline rush.
If I could blow your trumpet for you for a moment. So you've got the Cert VNECC, that's the Vets Now Emergency and Critical Care qualification. We got that in 2015, was that right? I think thereabouts?
So, yes it was, yeah.
I say that as a question, I know it is because I looked on your website earlier. You've also got the ISVPS Nurses Certificate in Anaesthesia, which is incredibly highly rated.
I loved it. It was really good.
And all of that in some way led to you, and the blog that you do has all led to you being recognised by your peers, which I think is an incredible honour. And you were awarded the RCVS Inspiration Award in 2019 for essentially services to the vet-led team, weren't you? For veterinary nursing.
Basically, yeah, I'd like to think of it like that. Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. Well deserved. And cheers for that.
Cheers. I'll ching ching with my non-alcoholic beverage. I think you two do have alcoholic beverages, don't you?
No, it's just water.
No.
But
No.
No, but no, I'm really proud of it. It means a lot to me to have received that, being inspirational. But on the day when I was awarded it, I just felt really humbled, because the reason I'm so in love with my job is because I'm so inspired by those around me. So my colleagues that I work with, nurses that I meet, other vets that I meet. So I felt like, although I got sort of the recognition for inspiring others, I felt like as a profession I wanted to say thank you to everybody, and specifically Louise O'Dwyer, because she was just like my biggest vet nurse idol ever. She's amazing. And I wish she knew that, like, how much it had an impact on my career, as she had many others as well. So it was really special thing.
I think very, very well deserved as well. It's
very well indeed.
Absolutely. I keep thinking back to this sort of 15-year-old and wondering whether that 15-year-old who've got an interest in anaesthesia could really see herself going that far.
No, and to be honest, like this whole last 3 years, it just went nuts. Like, I started the blog at Christmas. I was really bored off work one evening. I thought, oh gosh, I feel like I want to start a blog. I'd seen that Kat the Vet had a Facebook page, and I thought Kat Henstridge, and I thought, why are no nurses doing this? Like, I'm not a shy person. I want to get out there. But then I thought, actually, who is my target audience? And I thought to myself, well, actually, pet owners aren't my target audience. I wanted to interact and engage with other nurses, and that's how it all began. And then it exploded like crazy, and so many other opportunities had come out of it, and then it's been nuts, non-stop. So
how do people catch up with that then? What's the key words for this?
So my website, louthevetnurse.com, easy peasy. And for Facebook and Instagram, it's Lou the Vet Nurse. Easy, everything's the same. But yeah, I love talking with nurses. If they they have a nursing query, they need some inspiration, they want to find some good books to read, some articles, they're doing some audits, they want some support, like nurses reach out, and I love just chatting, especially being off work the last year, furloughed, pregnant, and then having the baby. It's been nice to still sort of feel like I'm part of the gang, although I haven't actually been in practice.
Oh, you've blown it. You've blown it now, haven't you?
What have I done?
Bloody hell, Northway. I was going to feed into that.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to do, and you just
messed it up. Sorry. Do you want to start again?
No, it's all right. I'll just look rubbish. That's fine. I don't care. So, Lou, the last year or so has been full of changes for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, so different. It went from being at like 100 miles an hour to it just stopped overnight, is how I felt, literally. And then I got sick with probably COVID.
And you were poorly. You were poorly for quite a while, weren't you? And off work. And obviously somebody took advantage of that situation.
Oh, no, that was before. It was before Christmas.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah,
you were taking advantage of before Christmas.
I was taking advantage of, obviously, yes.
Okay, absolutely. So and then of course you were pregnant.
And then working from home, and then furloughed. Yes.
So you've got all of these things going on. Any one individually is a life-changing event for you. So talk me through, because you got furloughed, and I seem to recall that you wanted to go back.
Yeah, I felt so conflicted, because I think I've relied on my identity being vet nurse Lou for so long. All of a sudden it was like, that's it, Lou. And I was like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? Who am I? Out of work the last couple of years, all I've done is writing articles, doing Facebook posts, writing blogs, in my free time. It's all I've done. So I haven't really had a hobby or anything else going on. So to be honest, it was a bit of a reality check as well, that I needed to perhaps think of my identity without my uniform on too. And obviously now I have another role, so it's fine. I feel like not complete because I'm not back at work yet, but I feel like I have a purpose, because I felt like I'd lost it a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the COVID lockdown and like the whole COVID pandemic, you're giving birth to Max?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was alone in hospital for 6 days because of COVID.
Right.
In a side room, because I was an MRSA carrier. Can you believe it? I didn't find out till the week before I had him. So they put me in a side room and barrier nursed me. So I was on my own.
You're a carrier?
Talk. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
yeah. So
gosh.
and this is really interesting, actually. So when I was poorly last March, I had all the COVID symptoms and lots of other weird and wonderful ones, like a bilateral ear infection, and I went completely deaf. And I had my ears swabbed, and it was my ear swabs that came back MRSA positive. However, at the time, they told me my swabs were fine. But then when I was in hospital in one evening, I had to go in and be checked because he wasn't moving as much as normal. They were like, you're an MRSA carrier. And then they all swarmed around me and made me put gloves on. And they then kitted up even more. And I was like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, wow.
And then they sent me home with some hippie scrub and some stuff to put up my nose and said, you need to start therapy. And I was like, what? Where has this all come from? Anyway, but yeah, it was really interesting. And they said if I had been a human nurse, normally human nurses are swabbed like always anyway, because of being in contact with humans in hospital, and they often have MRSA, but I probably got it at work.
So, okay, are you going to go back to nursing, Lou?
Yes, I'm going to go back part-time.
Okay.
And I want to sort of take up, I want to carry on speaking, because I love public speaking and going and meeting nurses and going into practices and just giving them little hints and tips. They're like, gosh, that makes so much sense, and helping them improve standards. And I'm really hoping to like do a little bit more quality improvement. So like getting them into auditing and things as well, when time allows to go and do that, because it's so important, and more practices will be doing it in the future. So yeah.
In fact, I read one of your articles earlier on about neutering.
Yes.
And how no neutering is just the neutering. I probably misquoted the name of it, but you were talking about
complications, post-op complications.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
that was
it
really
came
fascinating.
Out from that, I was going to say, it came out from that article how deeply concerned and interested you are in getting every single case as good as it can be by looking at complications, errors, improvements of every other case. So how would you go about doing that? So say you were invited into a practice to improve their post-op complication rate. What would be your top tips for that?
So firstly, you can't improve unless you know how you're doing already. So that's like where you do sort of like your your own benchmarking audit. So in a month, or you could just do 2 weeks to start with if you wanted to. Every patient that comes back to the practice, you could either set up a questionnaire or just have a very simple scoring system, like the using the RCBS Knowledge clinical audit template, which you can download, and just recording it. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, look at what your complication rate is, and then have a chat and think about, what's influencing this. Oh, well, on the clinical notes, it actually said that the owner wasn't given a buster collar, or refused it, or owner said let off lead on the second day. So then you can start thinking about, well, how can we communicate better with the owners? What advice are we giving? Is everyone giving the same advice? And then making a few adaptations, and then re-auditing and seeing if you make improvements month to month. And in my practice, normally I would audit, I think, about 200 patients a month that were just having neutering before I started auditing everybody, which was then like 400 animals, which is a lot. And then again, as I say, just like looking at, well, what was going wrong really, and how we can make things better. And then once you start engaging the team, saying, oh, did you know that dog castrate that you saw, this happened, and then we've changed this, and this month we've only had 5% complication rate versus 15%. I'll be like, wow, that's really, really cool. And I find that sort of telling everyone the results, some months aren't as good, don't get me wrong, like you do have months which are worse than the month before, but then it's thinking like, what's different this month? Yep. And sometimes it's as simple as the weather. If you have a really wet month and they're taking their dog castrates post-op out for walks, and all that mud is splashing up on the castrate wound. Yep. Well, is that an influencing factor? Possibly. So if I was going to go into practice, I would say do a benchmark audit, have a team meeting. How does everyone think they're doing? And a discussion for change, and involve everybody that's involved in sort of giving owners advice and looking after the animals in the practice as well. Because it's a team approach.
So absolutely.
So go on,
Mike. Sorry, you.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you've been out of practice for a while, and obviously because you've been on maternity, and there've been a whole raft of changes that we've been discussing on Veterinary Ramblings for the last year or so, with regards to that. I'm wondering, do you think that those sort of things will make auditing more difficult?
It depends what exactly it is you're specifically auditing. I think the post-op neutering, not so much, because you still take the animal in. I think maybe the communication with the owner may not be as thorough, because you're doing it outside, it's cold, you might not take as much time going through everything as thoroughly. But you might actually find that things are better, so you're not having as many cases of canine diarrhea because the dogs are not socializing as much, little things like that. I don't know, but I would love to. I don't think, unfortunately, anyone's been auditing whilst I've not been there because they've been a bit short staffed and it's been extremely busy, but I hope to get back on board. And I hear we have a new computer system which does all the sort of I was manually inputting all the data myself, but now our new computer system does that for me. So hopefully my life's going to be much easier.
Right. Will that allow you to audit?
Yes, it's got that feature built in, which is fantastic. And I really hope in future that all systems have it built in, because I think the thing that puts people off auditing is the time it takes, because you do have to be dedicated to do it unless you have a system like that. So, I was allocated a half day once a week to input data, and that was me sat at a computer going through every clinical record, typing in all the details. It's time consuming, but a bit addictive though. I'm now logging every time my baby eats, poos, pees and sleeps, so it hasn't really stopped.
Data can be very addictive.
Okay, so taking from your experiences of motherhood, which you've just shared there, are there any things that you would take from your experience? Lockdown, COVID, MHRA, new mum, saw somebody twice. Are there any things you take from that experience that we can spin over into the veterinary field to help our communication to our clients improve or better? What are there any take homes from that?
Well, I feel a bit conflicted on my experiences so far, because the actual day I gave birth to Max, the communication was fantastic. I had my own midwife all day, which actually ended up being the sister of one of the vets I used to work with, which was a bit weird because they look a bit similar. So I felt a bit uncomfortable when I was in certain precarious positions, trying to get him out, but sort of comforting that it was a familiar face at the same time. But anyway, so that was amazing. But around that, really, I just thought how lucky our patients are. As in, I don't know really how to put that. I just think, because I think I was in a side room on my own and I understood what was going on, that almost made it worse. And you know, with COVID, you saw the strain through the midwives' eyes that they were under. You know, they were doing their jolly best the days that I was in, but they were so busy and understaffed, and it was really tough, to be honest, really tough. But I just thought to myself, do you know what? Every bitch I've ever looked after that's whelped, they've got better care than I've had either side of having my giving birth to Max. Yeah. So yeah, I felt like a dog the whole time. I was comparing everything that happened, you know, the drugs that I was having. They gave me some tranexamic acid because I hemorrhaged, and I thought I was telling them that we give it to greyhounds because they have delayed coagulopathies, and they were like, oh, that's so interesting. Then they gave me some morphine and it made me feel really sick, and I was like, we don't use morphine, it's not licensed, and oh, it's disgusting, it's awful, we use methadone. And they were like, oh, that's really cool. And you can imagine me in theatre, can't you? They were probably like, oh, shut her up. But anyway, I found it fascinating. Like, and I had an epidural. That was amazing. Like, highly recommended. Yeah, do that. Always do that. That's Lou the Vet Nurse advice to any mums out there that's going to go through it the first time. Have one, especially if your baby ends up being over 10 pounds. Recommended.
Over 10 pounds?
He was 10.6 actually.
10.6. Oh my goodness me. So you're not back to horse riding just yet?
Oh no, I'm never going to be the same again, to be honest. But you know, it's like all those times, all the drugs they were using, and they did a surgical safety checklist before they cracked on doing what they were doing, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah,
it's interesting to know that there are lessons we learned each way. They have surgical checklists, safety checklists, and they have processes in place that make us very envious. We have, for most of our patients, the time that they're not at liberty to give because they're so pressured, aren't they? I think it's fair to say.
Oh yeah. Even
before the COVID pandemic, that the NHS deals, I think, incredibly well with understaffing and poor management.
I just really felt for them.
So Lou, presumably you're using reusable nappies and washing 4 or 5 every hour, and or not.
I wish I should. I know I should.
Do you know we went down?
They poo so much.
We went.
You can't.
We thought.
I can't. I would go mad. I can't.
I know. We got before we had our first daughter. We looked into the reusable nappies, and there was a company that would collect the used cloth nappies and take them away and clean them and bring them back, and it was great. You could get these liners made out of seaweed or kapok or coconut or whatever, and it all sounded brilliant. It sounded great fun. Wonderful. So we can do this and not use those awful landfill nappies. Well, let's do that. It lasted less than 2 hours. Because with sleep deprivation,
I just can't believe how much they poo. It's hardcore, isn't it? The first 12 weeks.
The back of the neck, isn't it?
Oh, how does that even happen though? It shocks me every time, and I think, oh, like we had an accident today, and yeah, it's but I think vet nursing has definitely prepared me for baby poo. So actually, it's not that bad. It doesn't smell that bad at all, does it?
No.
You know, whilst my husband's gagging, I'm like,
terrible.
What's wrong? It's fine. It's not hemorrhagic diarrhea. You know, it's fine.
Absolutely. The smell wasn't the problem. It's the ones that shoot up the back of the nappies and get to the back of the neck, and you're thinking, how did that happen? How am I going to clean this up? And by the way, it's now over all my clothes. and you answer the door, don't you? You just rubbed your
nose.
And
then they put their foot in it, and then their hand in it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know that you're talking to the postman who's delivering a parcel, and you've got some baby crap, a bit Adam and the Ant style, over your nose. And he's looking and he's saying...
It's hardcore. It really is hardcore. It's like being on call 24 hours a day. That's how I compare it to. Like, you've always got that low level of adrenaline going, just keeping you going, like when you're on call. And then when you actually can go to bed to sleep, you're like... because you're just waiting for the next call, basically.
Eyes wide open.
You know?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So I just think it's very similar.
Adam and the Ant. Adam the Ant? Adam and the Ants. What's...
Adam and the Ants. He had this stripe, didn't he, over his nose when he dressed up. He had this.
Might be a bit before my time, I'm afraid. Sorry to say that, but it might be a bit before my time.
Yeah, I thought so, Julian.
Maybe. Yeah.
It was.
Sorry.
My much older brother told me about this pop group in which there was this guy called Adam who played with a group called the Ants, and he used to have not baby shit, but white lines drawn over his nose. I never saw it. I was far too young. But I'm going to change the subject to lions. You like lions, do you?
I've always. I can't tell you why. I just think they're amazing.
God, you can tell us why. We're friends.
I can't. But that's the thing. I can't even tell you why.
What about tigers?
Oh, I see. Sorry, you're joking. I'm with you. I don't know what it is. I just don't love them as much. Just something about a lion, specifically lionesses. I just love them. I think they're just strong and they're hardworking. Maybe they're my role models. I don't know. They do all the work. They crack on. They go and hunt and.
So if you had an avatar or a spirit animal, then would that be a lioness?
Oh no! If my spirit animal, I'll be a pigeon. Literally.
Why?
Yeah, just because I just think I'm a bit of an idiot, like dopey, and I flutter around and I'm like a hyper, if, at work I often think like I'm a really overexcited flappy pigeon. Well, I'm not flappy. I can be cool in an emergency, but just a bit extravagant in how I behave sometimes.
Wow. I don't think anybody who knows you, Lou, would describe you as a pigeon. I think the lioness, particularly now as a mum, is far more appropriate for you.
Do you feel ferociously protective? It takes over. It's like I feel so protective over him. It's insane.
I know when my oldest daughter was about 4 months old. I was sitting up in bed one morning with my wife and looking at our daughter, and I suddenly this rage developed in me. It's the only way I can describe it. This red film came down, and I turned to my wife and said, "If anyone ever harms her, I'm going to bloody kill her." She said, "No one is." "I know, but if they do," they're not there. Well, good.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was thinking earlier, he's never going to have a driving license. He's never going to drive anywhere. I'm going to make sure that his girlfriend or his boyfriend, he can love who he wants, is really lovely. And I want me to be his best friend forever, basically.
Oh,
he's still going to have to fill in a 32-page questionnaire if he wants to date any of my daughters.
Well, actually, that would be fine. But your daughter will have to be prepared to be audited. So there we go.
That's fine. We've done that. We've done that already. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny, you do start thinking about the future, and I've been reflecting a lot on my childhood and like thinking, oh my gosh, my mum, like I totally took her for granted, and like because I'm a twin, how the hell did she do that? Crazy. How did she manage 2 babies? And I've only got one, and it's chuffing hard work, and she managed both of us. It's crazy.
Yeah. So now, did you have a twin brother or a twin sister?
A twin sister.
And are you identical or not?
We are officially non-identical.
I have a twin sister.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and Giselle, I know you're watching.
Giselle, hello, Giselle. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi there. Thank you.
Shout out to Giselle. Thank you very much indeed.
She's lovely. She's great, and we're very, very close. But one of the questions that we're always asked, or I'm always asked, is, "You got a twin sister? Are you identical?" Well, no, I got the Willie. what I normally
funny,
say is,
yeah.
I normally say, she's more identical than I am. And they say, oh, yeah.
Do you think people just don't think, though? It's like one of those automatic questions, isn't it? You don't actually think about when you say it out loud. But yeah, we're very different now. Very different. But when we were little, we looked very similar. She lives quite close to me locally, and she actually gave birth to a baby girl 3 months before I had Max. So we've been support bubbling, which has kept me sane. So that's been nice. I haven't been on my own with Max, otherwise it would have been a very long 5 months.
As you mentioned, she was your support bubble, or you were each other's support bubbles after birth. And of course, when I had my first baby, when we had, my wife and I had our first baby, we went to antenatal classes, and our support network were the people at antenatal. And of course, you wouldn't have had that, would you?
Nope, I had no prenatal and no baby classes after. That's been really hard, actually. Although I have a lot of friends that have had babies, being able to talk to someone that's at exactly the same stage as you, I think would have made a big difference. But you can't change it. It's the way it is. Every new mum in the last year has been in the same boat. So that's what I just have to keep remembering, and also being grateful that I have had my sister to spend time with, and she's already been through it once before as well. So she's had all the questions all through the night and all the next day, and she's been very patient with me.
Well, she's an expert.
It's really scary. Yeah, well, it's so scary having a baby. They're so fragile when they come out, and what's normal, knowing what's normal, it's like a whole new ball game. And you can't really, well, in some ways you can compare them to puppies and kittens, but in a lot of other ways you can't. So there we go.
You can't.
So what would your advice be then to a veterinary nurse who's thinking of having a baby?
Oh, like, go for it. Just if the time is right. Well, not that there is ever a right time, really. I don't think. Your career will always be there.
Don't ever think there's a right time.
Yeah, I mean, I got pregnant. I mean, like, I wouldn't say we timed it exactly, because we've been trying for quite a long time. But I got pregnant at when my career was at its, a massive point. And when I found out in the December I was pregnant, all of the last year I had a congress to speak at basically every month. Some in the UK, some in Ireland. I'd been invited over to Belgium, and I was going to do all of that. And then actually, on reflection, pregnant, I probably actually wouldn't have managed it, because I found it really hard work being pregnant, like physically on my body. I didn't do pregnancy very well, to be honest. But
you probably did it better than Mike and I would.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, women are, we're tougher, aren't we? I think we're lionesses, as I said earlier. So if you do get pregnant, you have to put yourself first, and you do have to step back from being full on at work, because it's really hard going. You have to rest. It's really important. So in a way, it was a blessing in disguise that I was furloughed and working from home for a bit, dare I say it. But your career will always be there. As I say, I could have viewed it that the door had shut when I got pregnant. And yes, to start with, I did feel like that, because then COVID hit and then everything was like cancelled and not happening. But then, my job's still there, and all the other conferences will start again, and I'm going to get back out there. So it's all good. And it would, for everyone else as well.
So you're going to get back out doing your CPD, doing your lectures.
I hope so.
Doing
it's all to do with time, to be honest, because as I said before, I was working full time and then sitting up to 11 o'clock at night every night and weekends doing stuff. I can't do that now and be a mum.
I think the profession has grown and matured a bit, in that now there are the opportunities for the women in the profession to do that. There are the part-time jobs, the job shares and things, which 25 years ago when I qualified, there just weren't.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, my employers are really supportive. Like, they basically said I can go back and work what I want, really, which is lovely. And even before I was pregnant, with all my extracurricular nursing activities, as I call it, they were super supportive. And because I often need time off work to attend meetings when we could go to meetings. So I'd have to go to the Royal College sometimes for ones for the BVNA, for example, and things like that. So I think employers are much more open-minded now to, vet nursing is in practice as well, but actually you can have a lot more strings to your bow, and they need to be flexible about that. I think it's so important that employers see value in their staff and also encourage further development and training. So, sometimes, for example, nurses want to do it certificates, but they're really expensive and it's way above budget. So, it's off, you can't do that then, sorry. But it's like, why though? Because they're going to bring so many more skills back into your team. They're going to share their knowledge, hopefully, if you let them, and you've got that type of environment. And then your practice and your patients and your clients and you are going to benefit. So let them do it. Why do we have to keep having a CPD budget? It shouldn't be a budget. It should be, why do you want to develop? And it's that reason that should be the reason why they're allowed to do it, I think.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm wondering if you'll allow Julian and myself to help you get back into CPD. Have you come across the 1 minute CPD challenge?
I have.
So would you be up for that?
Why not? I'll give it a go. Deep breaths, yeah.
Okay, deep breaths, prepare. Here we go. So what's your topic? What would you like to do 1 minute CPD on?
Well, I've spoken about it a lot already tonight, quality improvement and human factors. I'm super passionate about it. I want everyone to get involved. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute.
In that case then, Lou Northway.
Oh my God, there's a countdown there.
Yeah. Yeah, and with music to it as well.
Oh, my heart's racing.
That's fine. Take a deep breath.
Deep breath, relax.
Take a sip of non-alcoholic drink.
You've given bigger lectures than this, and you've given birth to an amazing baby boy. It's not pressure at all.
There's no pressure.
Okay.
So hold on.
1 minute CPD on, what was it?
Quality improvement in human factors.
Starting now.
Okay, so nurses sitting in the audience right now, I want you to get involved with quality improvement and human factors. And you may be thinking, what the hell is Lou on about? Well, quality improvement is about looking at what you're doing already in practice and improving standards, because that is what you want. You always want to be seeking better. Well, you might be sat there thinking, well, Lou, we're doing great. Well, that's great, but let's make it even better. And then human factors, what's that? Well, that's looking at the influencing factors around why we behave how we do and how we interact with each other in practice. Do we blame each other when things go wrong? Hell no, we don't. And that is what human factors is all about. So this is working as a team and to use every mistake as a learning opportunity. So it's not going home and feeling sad about something bad that's happened at work. It's thinking, how can we stop this happening again next time, and how can we work together? Because a mistake isn't just one person's fault, it's a chain of events. It's a team mistake generally. So let's work together as a team and make everything better. So we're going to improve standards, stop blame, start working together, and be vet-led. That is what we're going to do. Boom.
Wow.
Awesome.
Rocking it, Lou.
Fantastic.
Lou,
That was great.
Done.
1 minute. How cool.
And I spoke as fast as I could. Most normal people would probably, that would be 5 minutes worth, wouldn't it?
That would, do you know, I think you would have done well on just a minute with that. There may be a couple of repetitions, but yeah, that was fantastic. It was really good. Really
Rocking
good.
it. Lou, the vet nurse, top quality, top draw stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, I just want everyone to work together, basically. If that's just one thing. I'm so happy in my practice and how all the team work with each other. If I could know that that's replicated everywhere else, because I do hear that it's not, and nurses feel worthless, like, their voice doesn't count. We need to change that because it sucks. And we need to start working together. So let's turn every negative into a positive, as cliche as it says, and let's learn together.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. Well, listen, Lou, I mean, wow. Banging 1 minute CPD.
Amazing. I'm astounded.
I'm
Fantastic.
going to put Julian on the spot here, because Julian, have you got a CPD certificate?
Yes, I have. Got one here.
Let's have a look at tonight's CPD certificate. And of course, everybody can download this and submit.
Funny. They just get a certificate for a minute.
No, it's the whole hour.
No, the whole hour.
I was going to say, just that would be really, the Royal College would be like, what the hell? These 1 minute.
Well, we think the Royal College are, what the hell? We're waiting for somebody to actually upload one of these certificates.
I'm going to do it. I'll do it.
Go on. Look, there we go. I was hoping you'd like tigers, because I got a picture. There's a tiger. That's why.
Don't worry, I'll let it go. It's still a big cat.
I love that tiger. But
it's still acceptable.
That tiger.
I think you might have done.
I have done.
Yeah, it's a female tiger. And I thought, because because Louise means warrior woman.
Oh, does it? Oh, I like that.
So I thought, there we go. So what people are listening to this and they can't hear anything, or they can't see anything.
They're going to think you've lost the plot.
There's a picture of a tiger, there's a picture of a tapir, there's a picture of a little baby turtle just hatched from its shell, wandering down the sand. There's also a picture of a spaniel with several puppies, really to illustrate your paper on auditing neutering, which is very important. And the certificates, definitely worth a read.
So what does it say across there?
It says quality certificate.
Yeah.
This certifies that quality assessment has been carried out on this certificate, and it could do better.
Well, it could. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. We've talked about lions, not tigers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to compare Lou to a whelping spaniel is frankly offensive.
Yes, it is. But it's better than a whelping bulldog, isn't it? Or a whelping Frenchie, to be fair.
Let's move on, because there's our CPD certificate.
Lovely. That's brilliant.
Lou has nailed 60-second CPD absolutely brilliantly. But, and we have mentioned the RCVS, none of this will be to any avail unless we comply with the RCVS regulations and reflect upon the CPD that we've had this evening.
That's very true.
Very true.
So, Lou the vet nurse, could I ask you to join with us in a moment's reflection on the CPD that we've had this evening?
Reflection is really important. Reflection is super important. End of every day, I always recommend you reflect on what went well, what went not so well, and what we could do better next time. And then you've always got something to work on, and you're always moving forwards then.
That 1 minute CPD gives about 4 hours reflection, I think, because it's such an immense topic. It really is. Especially the no blame culture. That's so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not you did that wrong. It's okay, this happened.
How do we do this better?
How do we do it better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's all about the language and the approach to how you deal with the situation, because none of us want to make a mistake. No one goes to work with the intention of killing an animal, overdosing an animal, miscommunicating something, but it happens because we're in a stress, often quite stressful, high powered, very fast paced practice, aren't you? And you just sometimes don't have time to think. And I think people get their confidence knocked a lot. And then they think, I'm worthless, I can't do this, I'm rubbish. And they want to leave the profession because of how something's dealt with. And I think that's what we need to address the most in practice is communication. We spend a lot of time going on CPD courses, learning about clinical stuff, but actually it's the human side of it, being human, we need to focus more on. And that needs to be put in place during our primary training, whether that be nurse training or vet training, how we communicate. And
it's a shame, really.
Dealing with things.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, because in many regards, we all go through our lives and we have hundreds of positive experiences, and it's just that one negative that can unsettle us dramatically, and it does. And
you keep thinking about it.
You keep thinking about it. You question your worth. You question what you're doing. And sometimes it doesn't matter that you've got, somebody says, but look at the hundreds of other examples. You tend to focus on that one, don't you? And it's
you don't remember all the things that go well. You remember that one thing that went really wrong. Like slightly off topic, but I had a client a few years ago now, absolutely, totally verbally abused me. She was totally out of order. Disgracefully out of order, actually. And do you know what? Her words still go around in my head if I'm having a bad day, and you think that's just so wrong, isn't it? Like that shouldn't be allowed. Like they shouldn't be allowed to get away with being like that. But these interactions we have with each other in practice. The rabbit. A rabbit dies, for example, under anaesthetic. Oh well, what didn't you do? What didn't you do right? What went wrong? That's the complete wrong approach and not what we want to be doing. So I do think it's important as teams we do training together on how to manage situations, and that's why I say all the quality improvement and the human factors comes in. It's just so important, and I think it will revolutionise our profession if we all take hold of it.
Yeah. In which case, look, Lou the vet nurse, could I say a massive, massive thank you for joining us on Veterinary Ramblings?
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I hope I rambled well.
You've rambled brilliantly, amazingly. We've loved rambling with you.
This is the most I've chatted for like this for probably a year, to be honest, as in length of time with back and forth communication like this. So I hope it's been okay.
It's been wonderful. It's been really
We've
good.
loved having you on here, and if any of our listeners or viewers has liked having Lou on the show and you've liked what you've seen, then don't forget to subscribe, click like, follow, share it, tell your friends about us. And if you'd like us to mention anything else in particular, get in touch and we'll see if we can incorporate that in on a show at some point in time. So with no further ado, thank you. I'll raise a glass to Lou the vet nurse. Thank you very much indeed. And
Thank you for having me.
May your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
Cheers. You'll be
We
back
barely
soon.
scratched the surface. There's so much about you, about your career, about your interests that we could have chatted about. And as I said earlier, I feel like a boy in a toy shop. That I could just ask questions and keep going for hours and hours. But it's been brilliant fun. It really has.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. Now, I'm really passionate about the profession, and there is so much that we could talk about. I could talk for hours and hours and hours and just go off on a complete tangent about loads of different things.